Hello, I'm Alexandre Regeffe, VR post-production professional based in Paris, France, and I work with Neostopy Studio here. First of all, I want to thank very much B&A Studio for inviting me to this NAB to talk about my work with you all. And please, bear with my strong French accent. I hope you'll understand me better than Academy Award actor Jean Dujardin. If not, you can still read the slides. So now, let's start. Say hi to Johnny, alias Kenny Reeves, VR early adopter. So you can see here with a fancy headset in the film Johnny Mnemonic. You remember? It was shot back in 1994. So I find this is a great forward vision of VR evolution. Just 2 words, I finished to prepare this presentation last week, and since big announcements have been made by Facebook, as you may know, volumetric capture is landing in a cinematic VR world. It means that will be certainly other workflow to come. So now let's travel back in time to remind what was virtual reality. A bit of history now, because yes, VR is a long story and it is not new. As you can see, let me introduce you Ivan Sutherland. To me, he is the father of VR, as the first inventor of HMDs like this Damocles sword. And I wanted to show also 2 other VR experiences of early days. One called Sensorama, a multi-sensory machine from the 60s, and this Dark Vader headset, simulator for military training. Both experiences were designed to improve the feeling of immersion, which is, we know, the basic of VR. So you see, these texts are not so new and rooted in a long story. But let's talk about what's up today. Let's go back to present. 3 years ago, Facebook bought the startup Oculus, inventor of the Oculus Rift, a successful VR device. To me, this is really the starting point of VR as we know it today, because from there, big companies like Facebook and others pushed the market to make VR mainstream, to reach larger audiences. So what we've got in VR today? Where do we find VR? VR is there in many sectors. Gaming, for example, with HMDs like the Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive, where you become a proactive soldier, hero, investigator, bird, and whatever you want. You can move in virtual environment and interact into it. Also in the industry, construction, manufacturing, education, using a lot of the power of simulation to verify, test, and train. VR for leisure also enables you to travel everywhere or live amazing experiences while staying at home on your sofa. You can experience concerts, sports like NBA game, etc. In health also, with remote surgery and anatomy education, in business with corporate brandings, and the military sector, of course, are at the cutting edge of VR. Last but not least, cinematic VR, my specialty, appears as a new way to make movies, and I am here to talk about it. Stereoscopic binaural, nodalized shot, lat-long, VFX, ambisonics, all these tech words are nothing without one word, which is storytelling. You have to remember this keyword, the storytelling to engage the audience, to make cinematic VR a large success. Why I call it new way to make movies? Because you will have to understand several new complex processes specific to VR, and you'll have to learn, and you and your colleagues, to build a proper overall workflow and then master each part of it to deliver a clean final material. In all, mastering the basics of standard post-production is necessary, along with new cinematic VR expertise. So let's get back to the storytelling concept. As a cinematic VR post-production manager, my job is to help the creators to answer their question about VR, to resolve some issues with the right tools. The end of all this process has to be a good story. It means that I and you need to build an efficient workflow to be able to do this. But let's review the main steps of creating cinematic VR experiences. I can sum it up with these words. Create the writing process. You have, for example, to specially design your storyboard for VR. Shoot VR on the set with a lot of issues you need to manage, like all these crew members which are always in the camera field. Yes, it's 360, guys. Post complex workflows I'll talk about very soon. And of course, share, because your awesome VR experience that you produce has to be seen. Now let's dive into two steps, shoot and post. Here I threw on screen all these ideas involved in VR shooting. You'll see it complex, and you'll have to prepare it beforehand as it is much more technically demanding than standard capture, involving, for example, different kind of rigs and cams for different location and purposes. Choose stereoscopic or not, user experience design to avoid motion sickness, which is very important. Think of sound, prepare real-time monitoring tools, managing huge amount of files, etc., etc. And I don't talk about tricky problems like rise to be able to keep a reasonably low temperature with your camera. And less fun. So you'll need all new organization and skills specific for VR to master all that, to shoot and keep calm. With experience and good preparation, is it possible, believe me? And the next step, post-production, will be smoother as a result. Post-production, this is my specialty. It involves a complex workflow, a delicate range of processes to prepare. Use the right workflow for the right production. As there is not a unique recipe to achieve what you want, it's about being efficient in your creation to deliver emotion at the end. So today, I'm nice to you. I give you the list of main ingredients of this very interesting workflow. I will tell you more about each step in the next slide. The one, save. You know this IT mantra. If you don't have it twice, you just don't have it. Asset management is tricky, and you'll have to master it to keep safe and efficient. You'll make it by yourself. You will have a huge amount of files and assets to manage, so this is important. Number two stage, you have to assemble your multiple camera angles for each shot. This is specific to VR. The three, edit. The editing part is very important because storytelling, as you know, happens at writing, shooting, and also at the editing stage. This is all about specific VR grammar, but I'll tell you more later. Effects, you'll need it in a big way if what you want is a blockbuster with fancy effects, but also to clean your sequences from artifacts and polish your images. The grade, a spherical environment, means specific coloring tools. The sound mix, sound is very important to deliver the story and build the atmosphere it needs. Encode, the encoding is not the fun part, but it has to be done, unfortunately. So now, let's explain further each of these steps. Number one, save. Limit risks. There is enough complexity there, so keep it as safe and easy as possible with the right process and material. For example, you can secure your file using NAS and LTO tapes, because as I told you earlier, the IT mantra of making a copy, you have to save your work twice. To do this, go for a robust backup soft like Shotput Pro that does a checksum verification comparing copied material to the original. And you can do it, of course, without a high-speed data flow to move all this huge amount of data. The second stage, the stitch. Seamless image is very important to maintain a realistic immersion for the user. He doesn't want to be disturbed by artifacts or bad stitching. So you can do it by automatic way, like optical flow method, provided now by Zcam with WonderStitch, and by Nokia with Ozo Creator. Results are very variable, but we are in the premises of this technology. Or, if you want, you can do a traditional stitching with like AVP or video stitch. You may get perfect results if the shouting was organized and some rules. But stitching is a real hard job, especially with stereoscopic footage. And you can find Kingmaster in this process, but I won't give name today. And now there are new ways to stitch properly. I would say semi-automatic and node-oriented, like Nuke with the Cara VR option, and what I use every day, Assimilate Scratch. The third ingredient in post workflows is very important for storytelling, editing. Personally, I use Adobe Premiere because this software provides VR tools that makes my life easier. Some people say for VR, you have to learn a new grammar code, set your sequences, editing duration, and transition to follow the narrative choice, and secure a comfortable way to deliver emotion, empathy, fear, or any feeling. You have to keep in mind the user experience. Of course, there are do and don'ts, and you'll get to experiment them in your work. Use fading teleportation instead of cuts. Work to assure the user won't be shocked, lost, or even sick. Making it easy for him is not so easy, but with practice, you'll get soon the keys of UX for cinematic VR. So, as I said, maybe there are do and don'ts, but sometimes you can get wild and have fun because the production asks for it. Master the boring rules and then break it. I want to show this piece of Birmingham and Fresh Electro Music Band, the clip that we've made. It's a mix with footage and motion design. It's an equi-rectangular image. Lot of color, motion design to make it pop and lively. Okay, so you see this, plenty of VFX. So let's talk about VFX. Is the step number 4. You can add invisible effects, for example, to hide Nadir or crew member, or achieve building complex world with 3D integration that are serving your storytelling and delivering the right atmosphere to dive in. We often use After Effects with the Metal plugin of Chris Bobotis, which I invite you to visit here at NAB. I can tell you about adding VFX an entire day, but instead, let's see some footage again. Here is a sneak peek of the process I used to produce this teaser from Miniseries, inspired by Bram Stoker, the writer of the famous book Dracula. I simply take a 360 picture of Whitby Abbey in England. Then I had some simple black and white filter. Then I'll build a 3D scene with 2D sources by placing them across virtual rig, as you can see. Here is the final rectangular result. Remember, this is the starting photo. Now, I can show you the final result in real time. Let's play the final composite. You can see the two view modes inside the scene and the equirectangular image. You see, it's simple to add FX in a 360 environment with the good and the right plugins. So let's get into the step 5 is color grading, which is, I think, my favorite step. And it's an interesting step where you can enhance your cinematic, for example, with illuminated zone to suggest, for example, where to look. Now I think the VR color grading beast is the Squash VR for my friends of Assimilate. It enables me to work directly in the sphere environment with an Oculus or a Vive headset to see immediately what I'll get. It's GPU based. So if you have an insane computer, believe me or not, you can play and grade your huge size image in real time. Yes, it works. Also, in this machine, the contextual masks are also very powerful to end, for example, the zone close to the back seam, which were difficult to manage in other softwares. And since the last version of Squash, you can also stitch directly your footage. The result is pretty amazing because at any time after you stitch, you can modify it again. You can grade each of your cameras separately and do a lot to improve your shots. We use it for very difficult underwater shots, and Squash saved our life and our money, by the way. So let's get to the step 6. I mentioned the sound mix. You have to think about what you can tell with the sound. Yes, you can provide incredible experiences with specialized audio, and welcome back to the storytelling concept at this point. VR Mix is an opportunity to add a feeling of space and locate sound sources in the 3D space using audio spatialization in ambisonic sphere and binaural mixing with head tracking of audio objects. For example, imagine a man is calling you on your left. You don't see him, but you hear. So you turn your head in the direction of the sound. That's exactly the way to reach the best feeling of immersion. And of course, now you can use your favorite audio post-production tool. We use, for example, Pro Tools 12 with HDX2 acceleration, and we work with Facebook's 360 Spatial Audio Workstation, formerly known as 2 Big Ears, before Facebook bought the company. And don't forget, the main is sound artists are storytellers too. And the last step of post-production, not the funniest, but you have to prepare your experiences to be available for audiences. And as I wrote, welcome to non-standardized world. Forget the sweet standards you know from the broadcasters. You enter the jungle of FFmpeg warriors. You have to fit your huge amount of pixels in the spaghetti-like bandwidth, which is disappointing also for the creators. For example, we had to deliver for Arte 360 VR platform a mini-series called Antarctica Expedition. For each episode, we have to prepare 6 different files with various H.264 settings, but plus 3 H.264 files, and also the .tbe sound file for the head-tracked spatial mix. So 10 files, 3 episodes, you have 35 to deliver. A lot of encoding time. I think we together have to talk with agencies like SMPTE to build some standards about cinematic VR experiences. If we talk about the quality, the future seems to be brighter. The evolution of HMDs with the Star VR, for example, provide more pixels. And we also have to work on high frame rates, high dynamic range, always more pixels to provide more quality. So I hope you'll get the main ideas of my presentation. One, the key is your storytelling, don't forget it. And two, you will have to have an integrated, more holistic vision of your workflow than in traditional production, as footage and post-production are more complex. Quality of stitch, of sound design, of user experience will set the level of quality your production needs to deliver a realistic immersion and then deliver emotion to your audience. Because at the end, this is only matters. Thank you for your time, and if you have questions, please come to me later, and I'll be pleased to discuss further with you.